Saturday Night Fever. Between 1978 and 1980, I discovered, like many other girls and boys my age, discotheques. Places where you could listen to the most modern music, which in those years was undoubtedly the soundtrack of Saturday Night Fever by the Bee Gees. Dance wildly, emulating John Travolta in the movie if possible. Drink a Coca-Cola believing that you had the best cocktail in the world in your hands, and incidentally, find the guy who will invite you to take a few steps with him and perhaps steal a kiss in the dark. Those places made us feel like adults, even though today we only remember how young and innocent we were. In Zaragoza, the Papagayo discotheque was one of the most frequented, with great music and good atmosphere. Sometimes I went with a friend from school with whom I created a magnificent friendship. Her name was Loli, and she was from a town in Soria, Olvega. She lived with her parents, who were the caretakers of the building where they lived, and with her brother. Loli was a loyal friend even after I left the school, and she also lived only one street away from my house. Our new house on San Vicente Martir Street, a home that I loved, although the memories I have of it are bittersweet. Always, and although unfortunately I repeat myself, my father was the focus of the problem. In any case, we were happy because we were still in the same neighborhood with our friends and finding new ones. To this group of friends, a neighbor was added who lived in that new house, just 2 floors above, and was called Caesar. Also, residing there was a famous radio announcer in the city who worked for Radio Zaragoza, Conchita Carrillo, a wonderful woman, a good neighbor, and someone who helped us a lot, among other things, to find me a job. In those years, my first serious relationship with a boy also appeared. He was older than me and his name was Jose Mari. But although things started well, the fact that he was, as they say, like an octopus, made me lose interest in him, and after a few months, I left him forever. I've always been amazed that being so young then, 15 or 16 years old, I had the ability and courage to break up with someone who didn't make me happy. I think that was one of my first steps toward maturity. I also think that Eloy, whom I named in my previous chapter, was another factor to consider, as I could not get him out of my head or my soul. But it was a decision made with total clarity and confidence, which I never regretted, even though my mother insisted that Jose Mari was a good boy and good match since he worked in a bank and all that. My summers in Alicante in those days were fantastic, because I could go out at night with my Uncle Jesus downtown Alicante, go to the disco or be with his friends. He was already driving. I remember that he had a white Renault 5 and we felt like the oldest and most adult people in the world, free to do what we wanted, living behind the games in the street and in the gardens of the neighborhood and entering a completely different world. Since my uncle is 2.5 years older than I, his friends thought that I was his girlfriend, and both he and I laughed a lot when he said that I was his niece, and no one believed it. Since I was with him, my mother had no worries or inconveniences because she knew that I was well cared for. He always had music in the car. He was a big fan of reggae and the group Earth, Wind and Fire, which was very much in vogue in those years. After losing my job at Magic, I found employment at then famous scrap and fabric store Retales Corrochano. The shop was old and dark, but it had a tradition in Zaragoza. The owner, Mr. Corrochano, was a man in his 60s at the time, smoking at all hours and reading the newspaper on the counter. He was not a bad person, although he was a bit rough. I remember him coughing constantly because of his smoking habit. He had 2 sons, as far as I can recall, who came to the store from time to time. The one I remember the most is Fran, who I thought was handsome and friendly. There, I learned many things about fabrics, cuts, and necessary measurements to make everything from a blouse to a dress. A girl named Esther worked with me, and she helped me a lot because I had no idea of sewing. This will take us to the year 1981, where I will finally reach the age of majority, 18 years old, and a new love, Emiliano, will appear. And we will see the first attack on a pope in Rome, John Paul II, on television.